Could the economic pain that Donald Trump is inflicting in service of tariffs lose him and Republicans a key voting bloc? There are already some signs it could be happening. Let me explain. A big reason why Donald Trump won the White House was support from young men of Generation Z, activated, a little bit older than this kid, activated by Trump's machismo and political incorrectness, but also by his economic profile. They consider themselves high-risk hustlers. That's how pollster John Della Volpe told it to Puck's Peter Hamby. Quote, Gen Z men who are more likely than their peers to bet on sports, invest in stocks, and dabble in crypto. Their financial mindset is shaped by the belief that playing it safe leads to economic stagnation. But as both crypto and the stock market shudder and prices for things like eggs skyrocket, Trump is losing approval among these voters. Joining us now, founding partner at Puck and host of Snapchat's Good Luck America, Peter Hamby. Peter, it is good to see you. It has been a long time.
Good to see you, Katie. Thank you.
Explain this. The Gen Z men, the assumption is that they're firmly behind Donald Trump. What's going on?
I think you actually defined that group pretty well. I think you and I both have been out on the road and talked to a lot of voters, all ages, races, genders. There's an assumption, though, maybe among Democrats, on the left, journalists perhaps, that all young men are red hat wearing, anti-woke UFC fans who like Trump because he tells it like it is. But as you said, that's part of it. I spent so much of last year out in the swing states talking to younger voters of all kinds. The economic insecurity angle is very important. This is a generation, no matter the gender, that came up during the pandemic. Their biggest fear is access to the economy. If you look at polls, younger people are more likely to say it's not just the cost of living, it's also jobs than older generations are. But John Del Volpe's polling is very smart on this. He's doing a monthly tracking poll. He's the Harvard youth pollster, kind of the gold standard. He basically found that there's a subset of young men. He sort of categorizes them this way. They're more likely to gamble, crypto, stock market, et cetera, because they don't see a path to wealth, to owning a house, to owning a car even, in the way that previous generations did. And so they're more willing to take risks. And look, if you look at John's polling, Trump's approval rating among young men overall is pretty steady, Katie, but his approval rating on the economy has dropped 14 points between January and February. His approval rating on inflation has dropped 15 points among young men between January and February. And so if you look under the hood in polling at these economy numbers, that's true across all ages, but it can kind of be a canary in the coal mine for larger problems with his approval rating, which we see are going down. But I think the big picture here is young people, young men in particular, are giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. Overall, they like him, they want him to succeed. But the economy number is really bad because they're looking at their portfolios and their wallets.
Yeah, when does that benefit of the doubt run out? Is there a bottom? Is there a number that where it gets too low and Donald Trump can't make a comeback from it?
If his overall approval ratings among young men start to drop, I think that will mirror larger approval ratings among all men, and they will start to go down. Donald Trump's approval rating is not great. I think the whole political universe right now is sort of frozen in this moment. They think Trump is all powerful and he will be here forever. Presidents come in very hot and popular, and they're popular until they're not. Joe Biden at this time was plus 15 net fave. We saw what happened with his approval rating later, and then go back to George Bush or Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama, whoever. And Donald Trump is starting out from a pretty low approval rating. So I think the bottom line, I talked to one Republican strategist about this who's working on some Senate and governor's races for next year. His take was just that people want to see competence from Donald Trump on the economy. Again, it's not just culture war stuff for young men. They want to see results. For a lot of these voters, this was their first election, and they took a chance on Trump, or they, saw for the first time after the pandemic, the cost of living wasn't bad, wasn't good, hard to find a house, hard to get a job, et cetera. He's going to be our guy, but he needs to show results. I'm not saying it has to happen right now, but if we get into, the summertime and, people's crypto wallets aren't great, I have a feeling Donald Trump's going to feel that in his polling too.
Let me ask you about some of the other canaries in the coal mine here. And you talk about some of the bro podcasters, the Just Asking Question podcasters. And you also mention Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, and that he's not such a... You can't paint him with an easy brush to say that he's just a Donald Trump supporter, although he did vote for Donald Trump, and that he released this tweet, and this could mean something. Why is the release of the Epstein list always a bleep show, he says? What's the point of booting out illegals and criminals while somehow becoming a safe haven for the Tate brothers? Why is crypto in the toilet if Trump is crypto king? How far does Tesla stock have to crash before Elon goes back to work? Tell me about Portnoy's influence here.
I used Portnoy in my piece as a good example of, I think, a thing that, again, Democrats miss about the quote unquote bro vote, which I think is a pejorative. I agree with John Fetterman on that, actually. It only turns people off. But I listen to a few Barstool podcasts. Katie, I have 2 Washington Commanders Barstool T-shirts. He's not just a red hat wearing Trump guy. Dave Portnoy is a role model to a lot of younger people. He's a millennial. He's not Gen Z. He's transparent. He built his company from nothing. He's funny. Yes, he doesn't like political correctness. Yes, he voted for Donald Trump. But he was also, he came out against the Dobbs decision. And so I used him as an example of, a lot of people sent me that very tweet and said, oh my gosh, is Trump losing the bros? I mean, I think Dave Portnoy is a good example of a kind of younger male Trump voter that isn't full-blown culture war. They don't care about the Tate brothers. They don't care about the Epstein files. They do care about money and making it in the world. And he's not Theo Vaughn. He's not Joe Rogan. He's not Clay Travis. He's just a guy that young people looked up to. He's adjacent to politics, but not of it. And so I thought that tweet was a good example of what we're talking about. Portnoy, and he said this out loud, is giving Trump the benefit of the doubt too. But he said this on Fox Business the other day. He wants to see his stocks go up and his wallet fatter. And I think a lot of young men would probably agree with that.
I also think one thing to watch is, as you mentioned, he wasn't a fan of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. There is an inherent tension there because a lot of, that category of voters, not necessarily the most culturally conservative voters. All right.
Well,
Peter
that shows up in polling, Katie. I mean, young Gen Z men, they believe in climate change. They don't care as much about the abortion wars that older generations do. They do care about practical issues and making it in the world.
Yeah, and not being politically correct. You could add that to it. Peter Hamby, thank you very much for joining us. Please do come back.